idea that meeting with people and they said it's not about money, because it's all about the money. And then you can do what else you want to do with it, but there's a reason why everybody else is get theirs. And we want to make sure that folks are working. So I'm just saying, August 2nd, which is a Tuesday, I'm going to be rolling out the most massive, transformational, bold, economic plan for Black and brown people in the city of Austin.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question is about education equity. And we'll have the question from Seth Daniels of the Dorchester Reporter.
No. Yeah.
It used to work.
Oh, it just.
Okay,
There you go.
works now. On education equity, the boundaries of this district contain more charter schools than most, and also is the home to far more charter school students than most. Many parents feel charter schools give them options, but many educators feel they take away from Boston Public Schools. Would you support the Senate District's charter schools, and would you also support any of their potential expansion plans?
And Nico, we'll start with you. Minute and a half.
Education equity is what brought me into service and brought me into public service. As a young woman, as a young child, I went to 8 different public schools by the 8th grade because of those evictions I spoke of earlier. And then was plopped out of that because somebody thought I was going the wrong way and called my grandmother at Martin Luther King Branch Library and got me scholarships to go to private school. I was angry that my fellow students were being left behind. I was angry that the people that I was tutoring, especially young Black men, were being pushed along in the system with D's without being taught how to read. This is where many of our structurally racist problems begin. The same rules that are codified against us can be recodified for us, and that's what I've been working on. I was really excited to be part of the team that convinced our holdouts in the Student Opportunity Act, which fully funded education for the first time, that we also have to fund low-income school districts. With respect to charter schools, I do support the existing ones. I do not support expanding them. The initial charter of the charter schools was to create innovation that would go across the system. What instead we have is further expanded inequities. We need to invest all of the resources. We've been underfunded at $1 billion per year for the last 25 plus years. And that's just documented. We need to invest our resources in making sure that every school has everything that every child needs, and that's our constitutional obligation.
Thank you. Liz, you have 1 minute. To comment, you're right over time.
I support the current charter schools. I do not support expansion. I think every child and every family in our district deserves a leader that supports them regardless of the school that they choose for their children, whether it be Medco, Boston Public Schools, charter schools, parochial, or private. As a person who's visited all the 17 schools in my district as a state representative, I know that there's deep inequity. We have the highest concentration in the Fifth Suffolk of ELL learners. We have the highest concentration of special education students. Schools like the Cash have 45% of their students with an IEP. And so it's really incredibly important to support all families, all children with their chosen educational places that they choose to get educated. And it's not just about K to 12. My mom dropped out of Madison Park High School to have me. I went to the John D. O'Brien. We've had very different life outcomes because of the school's investments in both those schools versus Madison Park versus John D. O'Brien. So that would increase investment as well.
Thank you. Diane?
I support all the charter schools in the district, and I've always said parents are going to do whatever they think they can do to get their children the best. And if Hitler opened the charter schools tomorrow, there would be people in line because they're desperate for a better opportunity for their kids. And I think we all understand that. We all understand that. The charter schools have been particularly poor community partners in that they rely on Chapter 30B. They don't do business with people in this community, although they teach their children. Their contracting for Black and Latino businesses is horrible. And my position is that we have to keep pushing them on that, just like we push BPS. But yes, I do support them. I do not support lifting the cap. Because in fact, the way we do funding for charter schools now, in fact, does take away from public school. And if we can figure out a way to do it, and there is, then I wouldn't have that objection, but just taking away from Boston, is the result of supporting them. I wouldn't support it.
Thank you. Minyard, 1 minute.
Thank you, Karen. I think one of the ways that you solve this problem is you fully implement the Student Opportunity Act from now until 2027. We know that there was 1 year where the money that should have been implemented under the Student Opportunity Act was not implemented. I think that the state legislature, the Senate, and the governor should make a point and be intentional about implementing fully the Student Opportunity Act. What that would do is it would bring money to the schools that have buildings that are falling apart. I think they need to take COVID-19 money, use that money to implement the Boston public school 10-year plan. I think our children are living in working and going to school in public schools that are falling apart. I think we look at the Dearborn as an example of a public charter school that a minister began painting to get the Dearborn to where it is today. I think that's the example that we use. Thank you, Karen.
Our next question is about housing, and Lisa Kaczynski from Politico has a question.
All right, I told you we'd be getting back to housing. So I don't need to tell anyone how unaffordable it is to live in Boston or anywhere around it at this point. So I'd like to hear your solutions for the housing crisis, both for renters and for homeowners. And if that involves rent control, please elaborate on what rent control looks like to you specifically.
Liz Miranda, we'll start with you, 1.5 minutes.
As I've been knocking on doors and talking to residents for the last 8 months, housing has been the #1 topic of conversation. And I fundamentally believe that housing has to be a human right. When you cannot afford to buy a home in the neighborhood you love and live, it has deep consequences for community as folks are moving to Brockton, Stoughton, and other places to find affordable housing. It actually rips apart the civic fabric of our community. So it's incredibly important that people have a safe, healthy, affordable place to live. I've supported many of the legislation at the State House. This is an issue we have to do everything and together. We have to build more affordable housing. We have to invest more in home ownership programs. We have to ensure that we have rent stabilization, which I believe is about capping at a certain percentage, particularly for developers and those that own multiple units beyond 10 units. We hear a lot from small business and small homeowners who say, hey, I took out my life savings to buy these 2 or 3 homes. I don't think that I should be held at the same standard as other developers. But one of the crises that I see happening in the housing crisis is that we are also, and we're discriminatory toward folks that have eviction queries and folks that need extra support, and therefore those folks cannot find a suitable place to raise their families. And so I would continue to invest in RAFT, and continue to invest in Section 8 to ensure that everyone who deserves a place to live that is healthy and safe.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. 1 minute. 1 minute.
Did you call me?
Yes, Diane.
Okay, thank you. So the way we do housing in Massachusetts, I think, is fundamentally broken and will never be fixed unless we blow it up and reset it. Here's what I mean. We focus on affordable housing. And so because we focus on affordable housing, we give the majority of our housing money to nonprofit CDCs. They build the housing, no opportunity for the support and growth of Black and Latino and women-owned businesses. And then they require, in order to be eligible, you have to be poor to get in the house. Not a problem. Here's the issue. You have to stay poor to stay in the house. As long as that is the problem, we're going to have this cycle where we now in Roxbury have 78% of the rental housing is subsidized in low income, which means all of the big new buildings that are going up, 3/4 of the residents that live there are automatically out of the picture. They can't even engage in a purchase. And until we change the way we do it, and maybe we do it the way everybody else does it, it's going to be that.
Thank you. Moving on. 1 minute.
Thank you, Chairman and Diane. My policy does just that. I issued a housing policy 2 weeks ago, and there are 3 tenets to my housing policy with regard to home ownership. You know, we did Academy Homes. Academy Homes is now tenant owned. Campfield Gardens in the South End is now tenant owned. What I propose in my housing policy is that we take a housing like Franklin Field, it's state and federally supported, renovate it, put in a management company, transfer ownership to the tenants at Franklin Field. They deserve to be owners of that development. They should have some kind of ownership right in that development. The second thing that we should do is we should take Section 8. You might not realize it, but Section 8 holders in New Hampshire are buying single-family homes. We have Section 8 holders in Boston, those vouchers. They can also buy Section 8 home. They can buy homes with their Section 8. So I call on Mass Housing and the BHA to create a Section 8 home ownership program so they too can own a home.
Thank you.
There's one more to it.
Nika, 1 minute.
Housing instability has been my life, not only as a kid, but here in Boston for different reasons. My husband and I lived in more than 20 different places and actually landed in JP because we have friends that were willing to give us very low rent and ended up making our home there. We just bought our first home. I'm going to be 50 next year. We just bought our first home last year. Thank you. The types of policy that we need, this is where I've invested a lot of my energy. I am on the housing committee now. And we need not only cash, so yes, we've been raising revenue. We need not only land and more opportunities for developers, we need to make sure those are Black developers and Black communities. We also need to make sure that the $8 billion that I researched for 3 years to put to BU kids to find out in publicly owned land gets put to better use. It's just laying there and only big developers get to use it. Our communities need that. Yes, the nonprofit CDCs need to continue to get money so that they can develop, but we need more partnerships than that.
Thank you. It's now time for closing statements from all of our candidates. We'll start. Nika, State Representative Nika Elugardo.
I love Boston, I love this district, and our destiny is to lead the country in understanding what a new kind of leadership looks like. I have a lot of bills that I didn't mention today. I have a lot of accomplishments that I didn't mention today. The reason that I keep focusing on the leadership of my community, because that's the difference that we actually need. You can pass every one of the 8,000 plus bills in the legislature today, and you would not see any difference in your life. That's what's been happening. It's not that my colleagues don't work very hard. It's not that we're not behind the scenes pressing the governor, pressing the Senate president, pressing the leadership in the House. It's that we haven't reorganized how we think about leadership to put you and your voice at the center. I have spent my life learning from the best. How do you center the voices of people in community to build a movement? I'm not here to impress you tonight. I'm here to tell you that the opportunity and the pathway is before us. As everything is flying apart, it needs to fly apart because those systems do not support us. And the ones that do are in our communities right now, and that's the world we need, and that's what I will help you to lead.
Thank you.
First, I'd like to thank tonight's host and for all the candidates in this race. You all are brilliant and capable to lead the second Suffolk. I feel like I'm uniquely positioned to support and work in the State House for everyone in every corner, whether it's in the South End or Hyde Park or in my community of Dublin Street. In the 3.5 years I've been at the State House, I've delivered on many things: environmental justice, jail-based voting, maternal and birthing justice, which I could not speak about tonight, and also addressing issues of mass incarceration. I don't think there's any more important issue than addressing the climate crisis and ending mass incarceration for our community. I understand that leadership is both a privilege and a responsibility, and I take it to heart. I'm the person that thinks about what keeps you up at night. And you don't have to guess who your senator is. If I'm elected, I'm not only a legislative powerhouse and a progressive champion, but I'm someone who shows up when it matters and will show up every and each time.
From State Senator Diane Wilkerson.
Most important thing you can do as a state senator or a state rep is to be in the rooms where the decisions are made. And guess what? It's not in Grove Hall. It's in that building with the golden dome on it, and I think certainly there are other things you can do. So here's the bottom line for me. I'm the only one sitting here who's actually done it, and done it well. And by the way, did it better than anyone else. I have more precedent-setting legislation than any other legislator, and I did not say any other black legislator. Wrongful conviction compensation bill, I reminded again last Monday when I heard Sean Drumgold died. Because he was one of the first recipients. It's real for me. It's real. Anti-predatory lending bill, racial gender profiling, the things that matter to us. $250 million CRA insurance bill. We're still the only state in the nation that has it. I have been humbled by the level, breadth, and depth of the support. You're gonna see our youth roll out next week. And here's the bottom line. I ain't scared.
Thank you very much. Our last person still has 1 minute. Attorney Linnea Culpepper.
I want to thank the Communities of Color organization for hosting and organizing this debate. There's a reason why they call me the housing candidate, and the reason why I'll be the housing senator is because I have what they call a gentrification stabilization plan. When I was called on with COVID, I went out, created a $10 ministry, Karen, to feed folks during COVID. When folks called on me, when they needed food, we created a food pantry. We still feed folks 200 meals every 2 weeks. They come to the church. When Charles Morrell had the issue with the white supremacists, he called Minyard Culpepper and he called me to stand with him and fight for justice. I've been fighting for justice all of my life. I am in this race to win it, and when I win, we all win. I need your support. September 6th, vote Minyard Culpepper. Thank you for tonight, and may God bless you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's call our candidates who are sacrificing their time and energy to serve you. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go, I'd like to ask Representative China Tyler to the stage to close us out this evening.
That was good, y'all, right? So, in closing, I just want to thank our co-founder of Communities of Color, Darryl Smith, for coordinating this program. Everybody, please give it up for Darryl. He worked really, really hard to be able to put this together, and he did an amazing job. So, Darryl, I don't know where you're at, probably working, but thank you so much for doing this for us. I also want to thank Ms. Elder Witherspoon for her assistance in organizing this program. Please give it up for her as well, as she worked very, very hard to make this happen as well. I want to also thank Ms. Karen Holmes Ward for her moderating. Can you guys please wait until we're finished the program? Thank the panelists, Lisa Krasinski from Politico, Sean Phillip Cotter from the Boston Herald, Seth Daniels from the Dorchester Reporter. Thank you guys for continuing to show up and report on things that are happening in our community. We look forward to seeing you all soon. We also want to thank our sponsors, the physical sponsors, the Hibernian Hall, for allowing us to have this debate here. We want to thank Communities of Color, Ward Democratic Committees 8, 9, 11, 12, 14, 15, and 17, and 18, the BMA, Black Ministry Alliance, Greater Boston Interfaith Organization, Newmarket Business Association, and the Boston Medical Center. We also want to thank Mayor Wu and the City of Boston, and you guys for showing up tonight. Thank you all again for continuing to show up. We hope that folks have earned your vote. And we want also to give a couple of shout outs to some electeds that are here. Representative Tammy Gobert, who is also a candidate for Lieutenant Governor, and former City Councilor Tito Jackson, who is always showing up for us as well. So thank you all so much. Get home safe, and thank you again.